Exoprimal is a new dinosaur shoot-'em-up multiplayer game coming from Capcom, and I just wanted to throw out a couple things that I think people might be struggling with when it comes to what you're actually supposed to be doing when it comes to the multiplayer. And that's understandable because you were given books basically to read when it came to explaining these things. So I'm just going to throw out a couple of things that I think are going to be helpful if you are playing this game. First off, the most important thing, EXP rates. Now, I'm sure you noticed that when you're playing Dino Survival, there are three options. You have random, you have PvE, and you have PvP. Now, random, you get a 1.2 EXP bonus multiplier that is not given during PvP or PvE. PvE gives you a 1.3 times multiplier if you get a victory. A victory on PvE is basically your team defeating that final boss, regardless of if you did it before the other team or after. No matter when you defeat the boss, as long as you get it done, you will get that 1.3 times multiplier. PvP is very similar. You'll go through a couple little missions, and as you're doing them, the whole point is to get all of your tasks done before the enemy team. And there will also be player versus player in this mode where you're able to shoot the other players and make sure they basically don't succeed faster than you. Now PvP, if you get a victory, has a 1.5 times EXP multiplier. That only happens if you win. So there's absolutely no reason for you to not be playing the random mode. Strictly if you're trying to level up as fast as possible, that is going to be the best way. Granted, you will play PvP significantly more often than you will PvE. I have had one PvE game in all of the random games that I've played, which is about 40 to 50 plus, so do not expect to get PvE very often in the random game mode. However, you will get a lot of experience. Secondly, when you go to the hangar, if you want to make it to where the suit you start with is a different suit, go ahead and just hover over the suit and right click it, which will add it to favorites or whatever the button is for console. You'll see it in the bottom left corner, it'll say add to favorites. That is what's going to make it to where you spawn in with this correct suit on that you want to play. Now, moving on to the actual game. It might not seem very straightforward because they don't really do too much explaining, but if you press F1 or down on the D-pad for consoles, this is going to show you the abilities for the suit that you have equipped and what they all do. I feel like this is something that might not be easily found because they do not tell you what button to press, and I had to go into mappings to find exactly what it was. So if you're playing a new suit, go ahead, press F1 or down on the D-pad, and that will show you what the abilities actually do. Now, moving into the actual game modes. Now, regardless of if you're playing PvP or PvE, you're going to run into similar different little checkpoints as you're running through the missions. Now, firstly, one of the more important things is that you exactly know where you're going. There's a handful of maps, and for the most part, you are playing all in the same area. Now, occasionally, you will go in different directions, basically, but having the idea of where that next checkpoint is going to be is going to make it go significantly faster because only one person from the team needs to be there to actually get it started, and this is going to speed up your run significantly. So do your best to actually pay attention to where you're going and if you've played on this certain map before. Now moving on to the specific different types of checkpoints that you run into. The majority of the time you're going to run into a different amount of dinosaurs spawning, and you have to kill a certain amount of each different type. You can see which type you have to kill at the top, and it will tell you the number that you have to kill. So this is something that I've been running into constantly in all of the multiplayer games, regardless of what game mode, and that's people just going out of their way to destroy whatever is in front of them, as opposed to looking for the particular monsters that you're supposed to be killing. A lot of the times this has to do with the Tetradons because they are flying, and if you're playing like Zephyr, for example, it's like kind of a pain in the butt to shoot the flyers down because you just have a melee, unless you're using the cannon equip. But make sure you are looking at those numbers at the top because you do not need to kill everything. All you need to do is get exactly the correct amount killed, and once you do that, you'll be able to progress on to the next stage. So if there's a ton of raptors all over the place, right, but you just need to kill one more Tetradon, go ahead and shoot that Tetradon. Otherwise, you guys aren't going to be able to progress regardless of how many raptors you kill. So definitely be paying attention to those numbers on top. The second type that you will run into is the defense types. Now, this is going to spawn a square for you, and you basically have to defend this position. And I know when you see the dinosaur spawn, the first thing you want to do is run out there and smack them, right? But there is no benefit to getting rid of those dinosaurs out there if you are outside of this square. You'll have teammates that are running out to where the dinosaurs are going to spawn, and this is actually slowing the progress of that defense because it goes faster for each person that is actually in that square. So even if you're playing Zephyr, right, and you don't have a ranged weapon, just do your best to stay in the square and kill the dinosaurs as they come to you. I promise you that this is going to help you win so many more games because this happens in pretty much every single game. So I'm sure each team has at least 2 or 3 people that are not inside that square, slowing down their progress significantly. And now the third and final type, which is exclusive to PvP, is going to be moving the datagram. Now, this is exactly the same thing as that defense. Depending on how many people are next to the datagram, it is going to move significantly faster. And I think every single game that I have of PvP, there's only ever 2 or 3 people on the datagram, and it's the same exact reason. It's because people are going out to where the dinosaurs spawn to kill them. While that is helpful because, nobody gets to your datagram and hits it, you're slowing down the progress significantly by not being directly next to the datagram. Maybe you want to send out 1 tank in front of it, but what's worked best is just having your tank stand directly in front of the datagram. It will actually push the tank forward as it moves. You don't get, ran over, and you don't stop its progress by being in front of it. And this way you're able to keep everybody inside that same little zone to help progress the datagram. And I feel like this is even more important in those last areas where you're actually finally able to PvP. So many people go out to destroy the enemy team. And while that's not exactly a bad thing, because if they're not alive, they're not moving their datagram either. I've ran into several teams, both mine and the enemies, where everybody leaves the datagram at like 90% and it never actually progresses all the way to the finish. So the team that actually got the datagram to the end first and started the data upload just wins purely because they actually got it to the end there. Everybody else is more worried about the PvP aspects of the game. The last little thing that I want to add in is that PvE also has a PvP aspect of it. I know it says PvE, but the Dominator, which allows you to take over a dinosaur basically, generally it's going to be a Triceratops, one of the big T-Rex looking guys, those are both in the PvE and the PvP game mode. So even if you're playing PvP, assume that there is going to be an enemy dinosaur that is controlled by an enemy player attacking you. There isn't really a true PvE mode that has no interaction between the 2 teams. The only difference between the PvE and the PvP is that last interaction, you actually do not have to fight the enemy team in PvE. However, if the enemy team in PvE does complete their mission faster and you are unable to actually complete the mission, you will lose your victory bonus. So random is just the best game mode to play. That's going to be everything, guys. I just feel like in these first couple of days, there's a lot of confused people, and I wanted to make things a little bit easier to understand because the game itself doesn't really do that good of a job explaining these things to you outside of a couple little tips, basically. And a lot of their menus and a lot of their hints are extremely long, so I'm sure a lot of people just clicked right through it, so don't feel bad if you did that. But I hope this video did help you out. I'm going to be doing a review on Exoprimal here, probably in a day or so once I finish everything. And if you guys have any questions about the game that were not answered in this, feel free to let me know down below, and I'd be happy to help them. So if you enjoyed the content, like and subscribe, and as always, I hope to see you on the next one.